Okay, good evening all. Sorry, I got a little bit late. Okay, right. So today, we continue with the professional practice, and we want to first finish intellectual property with past papers as well. Okay, so let's finish that one first. Right, intellectual property. Let me open the note again. I will be using the UCSC note, and at the end we will do the past paper questions as well. Right. Intellectual properties. So objectives or the learning outcomes. So you need to understand the different types of intellectual properties, how these rights can be used to protect software, especially we look at it in the context of IT, debate about software patents, different type of Creative Commons licenses, and how it applied to software. What is mean by fair use policy when it comes to copyrighted materials? Right. So then we will look at these subtopics. What is tangible property? What is intangible property? What are the four types of intellectual property rights? Then we will be more concentrating on copyrights. What are the rights of copyright owner? What can you do with copyrighted work? Copyright in databases. What are the two type of copyright infringements? How to protect our copyrights of software by just giving the licensing. Okay. So then we look at patents. What can be patented? What kind of things are excluded from patenting? How to obtain patent? How to enforce your patent rights? So what is mean by software patents? And finally, we will look at trademarks. So why do we need trademarks and how to protect software using trademarks? Okay. And of course, examples of copyright cases, international cases. And finally, we look at the confidential information, obligations of the confidency, trade secrets, and public interest disclosure. So then Creative Commons licenses, the different type of Creative Commons licenses available. And finally, we'll look at the domain names related intellectual property rights and also fair use policy. That is anyway again related to copyrights. Okay, right. Right. Intellectual properties. So intellectual properties are related to intangible properties. Intellectual property rights are related to intangible properties. There are two type of properties, physical or tangible properties, and intangible properties. Tangible properties, if there's a theft, is right. So we can easily prove it because if you steals my vehicle, now the vehicle is with you, right? If you steal my phone, the phone is with you. So therefore, it's easy to detect, easy to prove. There's a case. But when it comes to intangible properties, intellectual properties, because there is no physical thing, right? It's difficult to detect and difficult to prove. And also the traditional laws are not good enough to cover intangible properties. So that is where we have intellectual property laws. Okay. Because this is when the theft is not physically removing the item from X and now it is with Y. No, it is still with X, but at the same time, now it is with Y. Idea, the copy of the code, copy of the software, something like that. Right. So that is why all over the world, every country, there are intellectual property laws. And international level, there are agreements related to intellectual property laws. Because this is often cross-country, cross-border. Okay. So very easily someone can violate the copyrights of another person in a different country. Okay. Right. What are the different type of intellectual property rights? Copyrights, patents, confidential information, not secrets, trademarks. So those are the four confidential rights. We'll take one by one. We'll start with copyrights. Okay, copyrights. So our discussion is mainly on copyrights. So copyright means right to copy. Right to copy something you have produced. Right? If you have produced that, if you are the original creator, you have the rights to copy, not anyone else. So that is called copyrights. So copyrights is the rights to copy reserved to the original user if it is something of intellectual property. Okay. So you must know what can be copyrighted, what are the rights of the copyright owner, and what are the violations, and what are the remedies. Okay. So in simple, copyright is right to copy your original work. So what kind of things are covered by copyrights? The original literary, drama, musics, artistic works are covered. You can see there are two categories. One is literature and art related things. Other area is industrial things. So copyrights covers two areas, art and literature side, industrial side. So when it comes to arts and literature side, it includes literary, drama, musics, songs, films, teledrama, any broadcasting, and so on. Even a documentary, film, and not only that, even photographs, videos, right? Typographical arrangements. So those are coming from the literature side, arts, and from industrial side, again we have copyrights, and it's specially related to IT industry. So which includes computer programs, certain databases, right? Certain contents, some design materials, and so on, right? Related to computer programs, especially computer programs and databases. Not all the programs, not all the databases, specific programs and databases. Right. Whether it's literature, artistic thing, or industrial thing, the copyrights are the same. The rights of the original owner or the copyright owner is the same. So what are the rights? So the rights are original owner can make copies. That is, if I am the original creator of that song, book, or software, piece of code, I have the rights to make copies, not you. And the copyright owner can adapt the work, take the original and do modifications and get derivative works. That only the copyright owner can do. Whether it's a song, book, or whether it's a piece of software, database, copyright owner can issue copies to others. That means give permission to use it, not selling it. Selling in the sense you are not selling the product. You give the licenses, permission to use it. But who can give that permission or license? Copyright owner. Others can't do that. And copyright owners can give your product as a rent, lend, and also copyright owners can perform it, play it if it is artistic related. Okay. and also broadcast in televisions, radios. That means the copyright owner get the ownership for the whatever the financial gains. Okay. And if anyone else is doing this, they need to get the permission of the copyright owner, right? Formal permission of the copyright owner. So that is important, right? So when it comes to copyrights, it's more implicit. There are some rights which are very explicit, like patents. You get the patent certificate, but for copyright, that is not the case. Copyright is you don't go and register your copyrighted material nowhere, right? So basically, it's implicit, but there are certain things you can do it to make it little bit more explicit, so that in case of a dispute or legal case, you can better prove it, easily prove it. But at the same time, those are also optional. But it really helped. Okay. So that is the first thing you need to understand. And how do you make it little bit more explicit? For example, you can have the copyright notice in your book, in your film, right? Of course, if it is song or something, you can't have copyright notice, right? But maybe if you release it as a album, you can have the copyright notice there. So that make it more legal, easy to prove that it's yours. But even though you haven't done it, still if you can prove it that you are the original owner, copyright owner, creator, still you have the copyrights and you can defend it. And when it comes software, so that is why in source code we write copyright notice. If it is a software, every class at the very top we have the copyright notice. Every code, source code. That is the first thing to defend your code. But again, it is not a must. But it's always good to have that, so that in case of a dispute, you are in a better position because you have explicitly mentioned that this is copyrighted material. And the second thing you need to do is when you give software, don't sell it. Of course, if you want to sell it, you can sell it. That means you get rid of all your copyrights. Now the copyrights are with the other guy. But if you want to retain your copyrights, what you can do is you can give them the license to use it. Simple as that. Still, the software is with you. Software's rights are with you. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Okay. So that is how you do it. So don't first thing have the copyright notices, each and every code. Secondly, you give the proper licenses, right? Not selling your software, which effectively lose your copyrights. Then they can copy and give it to others or give license to others so that they retain the copyrights. And for how long you have the copyrights? It's 70 years from the death of the author. 70 years. So that means say there's a song by Amaradeva. Now Amaradeva is no longer there. So whatever the date he died, then for further 770 years, the copyrights are with whoever the the next their family members and so on. So therefore, originally you have the copyrights, then your family members or the legal family members have the copyrights for another for 70 years. But this is for individual work. But most of the time, when it comes software, industrial things, it is a company, right? So you, as a company or as an organization, you develop the software. So then it depends on the country, right? The exact number of years, but the number of years is pretty much the same. But sometimes it is the release of the software and blah 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 because you can't exactly say who is the author, right? It is a collective teamwork. Okay, right. Right. If you are the copyright owner, say as an individual or as a company, so what can you do? So these are the things you can do. You can make backup of your program. Sorry. So that we already discussed, right? You can make a copy, you can rent it, you can adapt it, right? You can get the derivatives, and also you can sell your copyrights. You can sell your copyrights to someone else, right? Formal legal agreement. So then the copyrights are with that guy. Public display, if it is a film or something, right? What are the things that others have? Say, I have the copyrights of a book or something or software. Now I gave you the software licenses, or you have the copy of my novel. You have bought it. Now, what can you do with that? Right? So, what can you do with copyright work? Okay, especially when it comes to IT software. Right? So, remember, you are not supposed to make copies because it is not your software. You just got it. Just got the license. But you can make copies as a backup because when you install the software, there can be crashing. So then maybe you can take a copy of that, or you can keep that original CD or DVD, or maybe even you can duplicate it. But you can't give it to someone else, so you can't install it in different machine. If you have got the license for one single machine, if you have got the license for say 10 machines, you can't install it more than 10, but you can keep a copy of that. And also you can decompile a program because sometimes people they don't give you the source code. But if there's a critical bug error that then you don't get the support and so on, so then you have the special rights to decompile and fix the bug and recompile it. Okay. And also if you want to analyze and learn a little bit more about the software or the information system so that you want to integrate it and so on, so that you can do it. Even you can decompile and analyze it. But there are restrictions. So these are the things you can do. These are the very important thing for the exam. Right? You can make a backup of the software. You can decompile with a genuine purpose like fixing a bug or something, and you don't get any other support from the original creators. And you need some additional design analysis information for your further development, integration, and so on. So those are the things you can do. You can't do anything else. And remember, if you are the copyright owner, you can sell your copyrights also. That is different thing. So that means you no longer you are the owner of the copyrights. Okay. But if you need to retain it, don't sell it. You just give the license or permission to use it. Right. So next thing is copyrights related to databases. So remember, not every database is copyrighted. Say you have inventory management system, order processing system. Obviously, your database is not copyrighted, and actually, no one care about your database as well. But if you create a database for a specific purpose, where you collect your data with lot of effort, with investments, right? And it has a commercial value outside your system, like a map. So, for example, Google Map they have collected terabytes of data, GPS related things. So some of the commercial databases, right, with critical information, marketing information, that kind of data, and even dictionary is also a database. Those kind of things can be copyrighted. Not your inventory management system or customer relationship management system or the payroll system. Of course, it doesn't make sense to think about the copyrights for those systems. Okay. But you need to prove that you have spent substantial investment obtaining, verifying, presenting your database contents. And the time period is different. For normally, you know that even after the death of the last person, it's about 70 years, right? But for databases, it is only about 15 years from creating that. But if you do considerable update to the database, again, it extended for another 15 years. Okay, that means you have done considerable changes to your database related to the say dictionary, map, marketing information, and so on. Right. So now we move on to the copyright infringements. So infringement means violations. So this is the most important slide for exam because they keep asking what are the two type of copyright infringements. Right. So what are the two type of violations? We call them primary infringements and secondary infringements. Right. Two type of violations, primary infringement, secondary infringement. So what is mean by primary infringement? So primary infringement means someone explicitly violates someone's copyrights. So you print someone else's book. So then you commit primary infringement. So you are using my software, pirated software without licenses. You somehow get it from me, right? And use it. So then it's a primary infringement. Okay. So you somehow get it firsthand. Okay. Or you get it and you sell it as pirated software. You create it and sell it. Not you get it from someone else. You directly get it from me or the owner and you redistribute, resell it. So then it's a primary infringement. Secondary infringement means it happens in a sort of a secondary business context. For example, you have a retail shop. You sell copyrighted software as a right. Okay, just give me 2 minutes. Okay, just give me 2 minutes. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, let's continue. Right. So you haven't copied it, but maybe you are reseller or retailer, right? So then you are committing to a secondary infringement, right? So the primary infringement means you directly commit that. Secondary infringement means you do it as your own business or something, but you don't directly commit that. Okay, but you indirectly involved. Okay. So this is the most important thing when it comes to exam. Okay. So what is primary infringement? Take place whenever any of the exclusive rights of the copyright owner is breached. Breach means violated. Right? It is a matter of civil courts. Of course, these are all civil courts. Okay, not sort of these are civil cases. It's a dispute between two parties. Right? So that is called civil. Right? For example, I explain you civil cases includes copyrights. Sorry, intellectual related matters, divorce cases, land disputes, financial disputes. So those are civil cases. So then the two parties go to the courts, and if one is found guilty, so they need to pay compensation, rectify it. Okay. Right. So therefore, it's a civil case. So the copyright owner can claim damages and also ask for injunction to refrain from infringement. That means give a court order, ask him for a court order, uh, ban that guy doing that illegal thing, infringement. At the same time, any compensation the original copyright owner can demand. Of course, if the judiciary system approve it, so he or she will get it. Okay, so that is serious. So secondary infringement occurs when primary infringement occurs in a business or commercial context, like trading pirated software. So you just sell pirated software. You don't you maybe you buy from someone else and you sell it, right? Retail it. Or using pirated software within a business. Okay. So you don't copy it. Maybe you have bought it from someone else, pirated software, now you use it. So this is not as severe as primary infringement. Still, this is offense. So therefore, still the offender will get substantial fine, imprisonments, and so on. Okay. So this is again secondary infringement. In some cases, secondary infringement is considered as criminal offense because this is done in commercial aspects. So therefore, in some cases, secondary infringement can be more severe than primary infringement. So that is why sometimes, remember, if it is, this is more civil, but this is sometimes it can be more commercial. So that means it can be criminal also. Okay. It can be criminal case. Okay. So it depends on the context. It depends on the context and severity. Okay. So for example, if you have done this thousands of copies, you have said it. So then it can be real criminal offense as well. But if you have just said it small amount or so on, that may not be a big issue, right? Right. So primary infringement, secondary infringement, right? Right. Some more points related to copyright infringement. So we already discussed about the database related things, software related things. Right. Database, it must be very specific thing. Right. It must be very specific thing like dictionary, map, commercially important customer details, strategic informations, and so on. And program, it must be very specific program, not something like very simple front operation or so on. It must be very strategic code or holistic code for a commercial software. And there are some interesting cases where you find it or anyone will find it difficult to demonstrate that someone has copied. For example, so there are such situations, right? So you prepare, say, logarithmic table, you prepare trigonometric table, but you, of course, these days you don't need to prepare it. These are already there. But let's take a hypothetical situation. But you prepare it by yourself with your effort. Now, how do you preserve your copyrights? Because someone will say, okay, I also calculated this. Because log value, whether you calculate or I calculate, we should get the same value. So sine 25 is the same value whether you calculate or I calculate. But maybe the y has just copied x. X has done the original calculation, but y has copied. Now it's extremely difficult to prove that there's a copyright violation because the other guy will say, no, I also calculate. So there are some interesting things people can do to preserve their copyrights. Sometimes they can intentionally include maybe small error, include a small error to say actually it is 1.4141, but you would just edit it as 1.4142, maybe few places. Right? It is not critical for the users, but maybe you have identified places you have added slightly different values. Then if the other guys also have the same values, you can build the argument that this guy has copied because these are not the exact values. These are my intentional, I change this, and this guy, how can this guy get the same issues? So that kind of tricks we can use to preserve copyrights. Anyway, it's not directly related to IT. Okay. But maybe in your code also you can do something like that. Some specific patterns of code included so that you can prove that it is not a common code. This person has or this organization has specifically copied from our code. Okay. So you can see source code, the writer could insert occasional statement that had no functional effect. Maybe it has no functional effect, but just you introduce that code, maybe a method you never call. But that method is for your identity, right? If other you also have that method, then you can question why do you need this method? This method is never called, and this method has this particular message. Right? So that kind of things will help you build the argument in case of infringement. Okay. Right. So what are the concepts related to the ownerships? Okay. So remember when someone develop a software or database or literal things, the copyright is with the original author. So there are situations copyrights can be shared among few people. Maybe it's collective effort, right? Collective effort of few people, or it's a copyright is given to the organization, business entity. So those are possible. Remember, the legal person can be a human or business. So we discussed about the private limited companies. So private limited company can be the copyright owner. Okay. And also if you write some code as part of your job or profession and you got you got paid for your salaries and so on, then you don't have the copyrights unless your employer has mentioned it in your contracts. So typically the copyright goes to your employer, your organization, company, not to you because you are an employee. Right? You can't say that I wrote this code and the copyright is with me. But in some cases, very special cases, as part of your contract of employment, maybe they have mentioned that you also have the copyrights for certain codes. So then only you have the copyrights. Otherwise, in general, the copyright goes to the employer. Okay. And remember, copyrights can be transferred. So if I have the copyrights, or if a business X has the copyrights, business X can sell the copyrights to business Y or someone else. So it must be done in a proper legal manner. So then the company X can't claim the copyrights further. Right. So remember the licensing is super important to preserve the copyrights of your software. So don't sell software. You can sell your vehicle. Because once you sell your vehicle, you no longer has an interest, right? You can sell your land, but don't sell your software unless, right, you have no interest about your copyright. So rather, you give them the license to use it. Of course, you can get the money or free of charge. It doesn't matter. Even when you give it free of charge, make sure you give the license. Okay. Not selling your software or giving it for free. You can give it for free, but you give the license, not the software. Otherwise, you lose your copyrights. Okay. So there are different types of licenses, right? Remember, we discussed those things in semester one also, GPL, right? Lesser GPL, LGPL. So there are variations of GPL like uh, Apache licenses. Okay. So there are different type of licenses available. Okay. So these are some well-known copyright cases, international level copyright cases, especially these Oracle versus SAP, Oracle versus Google. So those are very famous copyright cases in the IT industry. So they have mentioned about these things. I'm not going through those things in detail. I don't think that the examiners will ask specific questions, but maybe, right, if the question examiners running out of questions, they might even ask these things, but not so far. But in case, especially pay attention to the last two. Of course, read all of these situations, but pay special attention to last two because those are sort of a very latest cases and very famous cases. Okay, Oracle versus SAP, Oracle versus Google. Okay, right. We'll quickly go through each and every. Uh, So this one you can go through by yourself, right? Lotus versus Bolan. This is somewhat older one. Both these companies, I don't think these companies are also not there now. But anyway, I think in 1980s or 90s this happened. So you can just go through this legal issue. So this is another one. Okay. Uh, so you can go through that one also. I will just go through the last two only. This is another one. Okay. So just go through the highlighted version. This is another one. Right. In the exam, they have never ever asked that this kind of things. Okay. Maybe this is just for you to get a feeling of what are the real world's copyright infringements and how these things get resolved and so on. Okay. Uh, right. So this is another one. Okay. 1996. Okay. But make sure you just go through it. Okay. So you guys can read English, right? Uh, So this same thing, right? I'll just briefly explain these two situations. The last two, Oracle versus SAP. Okay, so SAP is very famous or the one of the biggest ERP vendor. So ERP software means software covering almost all the functionalities for a business organization, financial distribution, customer relationship management, accounting, and everything. Okay, so Oracle also have their own ERP system. Right? Oracle also have their own ERP system. Okay. So then what happens? Right. So Oracle claimed that tomorrow now a subsidiary which provides support for all the Oracle products. So SAP is a ERP vendor. So therefore they have the experience in their field. And Oracle had their own products. So what SAP did was, so SAP subsidiary, a sub company, they start providing support for Oracle system. So that is, you can see that by look of it, that is unethical, right? Because say it is my software, you provide support for my software, right? Which is sort of illegal. But SAP did it. So in order to provide, because they have the technical capabilities, because they are also in the same domain. And in order to do that, they had to download the Oracle's documentations and so on, because they need to refer to that also, right? Support means uh, customization, bug fixing, and so on. So then Oracle file a case against that, saying that this is our copyrighted materials and these guys are providing support for our software. Right? So then at the end, in the case of the case has proceeded, and at the end, SAP has admitted that they had done infringement, and I think they had done, some compensation to the Oracle. Right. So they had to accept that it's a copyright infringement, and they had to pay compensation to the Oracle. Okay, because it's clearly violation of copyrights. Right. So the next one is even more interesting. Oracle versus Google. This is one of the most famous copyright battle. Uh, so remember, Java had very strong presence in mobile computing in early 1990s, because Java had Java Mobile Edition, and at that time there was no smartphone operating systems. Right? Only normal phones like BlackBerry and so on. Right? And on top of that, Java Mobile Edition, Java ME, and some very primitive applications. But then came the iOS from Apple, and then Google wanted to build their own operating system, similar operating system. But what the Google did was, because Java Mobile Edition was fairly open source, so they took Linux operating system kernel and used the wrapper as a wrapper. They use Java Mobile Edition, and on top of that, they built Android operating system. So, and it became heavy success. And all of a sudden, Google picked the market. All of a sudden, Android became even more popular than Windows. Even right now, what is the most widely used operating system? Android. But then what happened was, no one is using Java Mobile Edition. Remember, Java is now owned by Oracle. Now, no one uses Java Mobile Edition because they can straight away build applications on top of Android framework. So then Oracle went to the court and filed a case against Google. Right? And there were a lot of interesting things happened during that period also. For example, the founder of the Java language was James Gosling. Google even hired James Gosling to Google as part of defending the case, because then their Java founder is also now working at that time working in the Google, not at Oracle. But anyway, Google lost the case, and actually it's not complete losing the case. They had to settle, and Google had to pay heavy compensation to Oracle. But anyway, they managed to retain the Android operating system, but they had to pay compensation to Oracle, uh, because they took Java Mobile Edition code to build their Android operating system. So that is another copyright related uh, court case. Okay, court case. So likewise, you can go through the other cases also, but I just highlighted the last two because last two are the more popular cases. Okay. Uh, they can ask this kind of a question in the exam also, but very unlikely, but who knows? So therefore, you better have an idea about those because your syllabus is very small. Okay. Right. So that's it about copyrights. Okay. So right. We'll take a break. After the break, we'll move on to confidential information and then patents. Okay. Right. So now the time is 7:50. We'll start at 8:05. Okay, so let's continue. Right, so now we move on to confidential information. Okay. So these are not copyrights, right? So copyright is something you can copy and sort of resell it or something like that, like a novel. Or your software, they also give it to others. But confidential information is not like that. So these are sort of a secrets, business secrets, valuable secrets, technically valuable, business-wise valuable. Okay. And when they get that secret, someone else get that secret, you lose your competitive advantage. Okay. And again, these are extremely implicit because my secrets are, I'm not going to register it, right? Extremely implicit and very fussy area, very difficult to defend also, right? So therefore, there are so many indirect ways to defend it. Indirect ways, not direct ways. Right. Number one is how do you lose your confidential information? Mostly through your employees, internal people, because they get the access to the confidential information, right? Unless someone hack into your systems and so on. So therefore, first line of defense is when you sign contract of employments with your employees, if they are going to get exposed to those confidential information, technical business secrets, so we can ask them to sign a non-disclosure agreement, right? Non-disclosure agreement, NDA. So usually, especially when you work for a as a software engineer and so on, so usually as part of your contract of employment, your employer give you the NDA to sign. That is normal. That is pretty normal thing. For example, I have worked in three places. In all these three places, I had to sign NDAs. Sometimes multiple times we need to. Sometimes when we go from one customer to the other customer's project, there's separate NDA because then that customer also send an NDA and get it signed by us. Okay. So NDA is an agreement where the employee agree that he or she will not expose any confidential internal information that he or she has the access. So that is a legal document because you sign it. Okay. Now, if you pass it to third parties, and if the other party can prove it, now you are in trouble because you have signed agreement also not to disclose. But again, the difficult part is proving, right? Proving that I have disclosed it. Right? But there are possibilities that there are some evidences that they can use. And of course, if you have signed a non-disclosure agreements also, then things are even tougher. Okay. Okay. And most of the time, these are implicit, especially if you don't have non-disclosure agreement. It doesn't mean that you can disclose anything. Right? Still, you are legally bounded, but it's stronger when there's an NDA sign. Okay. Right. So these trade secrets are secrets that gives advantage or competitive advantage to a company. Right? Especially very technical things like some designs, architectures. Of course, it is in software. In other industries like formula for chemical, material, recipe. So those can also be trade secrets. Okay. So these are some examples. So then if you are working in that kind of a company, there's obligation that you don't pass these to third parties, especially competitors. Because this is one of the main asset of that organization. It's illegal as well as unethical, right? So the first of all, don't do unethical things. Forget about illegality, right? Because you are doing a bad thing, right? So now we look at a very special case: public interest disclosure. So remember, you are not supposed to expose internal things to the outside, especially trade secrets. But there are situations you need to talk internal things in public or in relevant law law enforcement authorities. So that is called public interest disclosure or qualifying disclosure. Qualified disclosure. So that means you disclose some internal things of a business organization to a third party or general public. Okay. But this is very serious stuff because your disclosure is going to harm your organization, right? Their reputation and so on. So therefore, when you do this kind of a thing, you must be 100% or very seriously verified that there's a genuine issue. And also you have tried out, resolve it internally. Those are the two things. Number one, you have verified beyond doubts that there's a serious issue, serious offense against humanity, crime, right? Second, you have attempted to resolve that internally, talking to your higher management and so on, and see whether they can fix it. If it doesn't work on the, and if it is serious issue to the public, general public, right, and so on, so then as a professional you can do the disclosure. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Right. But at the same time, you need to face the consequences. So that is why you need to have a very good case before doing this kind of a thing. Okay. So it must be in the right circumstances. Okay. So what do you mean by right circumstance? You have first raised the matter internally and they have not responded to you. You have verified that it's a serious issue. Okay. Maybe you have even disclose it to your professional body or any other law enforcement authority, public official, and maybe still it has not resolved. Or maybe those guys are also not responding. So then only you can disclose to the media or general public. So that is called public disclosure or public interest disclosure or qualifying disclosure. If it is a genuine case, the law guard you. So the legal system defend you because it's an obligation of a professional. But at the same time, if you have not done these things properly, sometimes you may end up in troubles also because maybe you tarnish the image of an organization. It's a wrong accusation. So that is why where you need to be very careful. Right. Anyway, that is called qualifying disclosure. Right. Now we move on to patents. So this is slightly different. This is very formal intellectual property, unlike copyrights and confidential information. Patent is something you obtain, you register. Patents are given to innovative ideas, innovative designs, like inventions. Patents are to protect inventors, encourage inventors, and also encourage disclosure in the inventions. So there are two main reasons. One is encourage new inventions. Secondly, encourage the disclosure of the new inventions. Otherwise, some people just keep it as a secret. So they come up with an invention and they don't use it. Maybe they don't have money or any other problems prevent them using it. At the same time, they don't disclose it to anyone. So then that invention died with you, which is bad. But patents does it. If you go and disclose your invention to the government institute, now your invention is known to others. It's no longer a secret. But as a defense, you get the exclusive right to use it for specific period. If I can remember, it's about 20 years. So it encourages you to disclose your invention. At the same time, give you the protection so that you have the exclusive rights to use that invention for a limited period. So that is the idea behind patent. But getting a patent is very formal procedure. It's not implicit like other things. Okay. So basically, patents give you temporary monopoly to use your invention. It's okay, right? It's your invention, so therefore you get the monopoly. Others can't copy your idea, design for the specific period. Okay. But after the monopoly period is expired, you don't have the patents anymore. Anyone else can or anyone can use your idea, and also you have now disclose it. You have now disclosed it to general public or to the relevant authorities. So then anyone else also, everyone is free to use your idea competitively. Of course, you can use it, but others also can use it. Right? What can be patented? So there are conditions. Number one is it must be a new design, new idea, serious idea. Right? And also there must be inventive step. Okay. That means it must be serious, not obvious. And it must be capable of industrial application. It has some practical application, maybe commercial usage, like a new design of a machine element, new material, new medicine or drug, or new very innovative algorithm that you can use in very serious development. But a very rare software industry or the products get patents. So usually software is more copyrighted. But if there's a huge innovative step, even software or some part of the software can be patented. Especially like some algorithms, special algorithms like algorithms related to audio files, video files they get patents, but not the normal commercial software development codes. Okay. And also it must not be in the area specifically excluded. So there are areas which are excluded for patents. So those areas you can't get patents. Right. What are the specifically excluded areas where you don't get patents? Number one, basically the idea is if it is a general concept, general scientific concept, you are not supposed to get patents. Patents are given to very specific applications, not general concept, general theories. So you don't get patent for scientific theories. For example, something like Newton's law, Coulomb's law. Right? You don't get, because those are very general things. And mathematical methods you don't get, like theorems, like Pythagoras theorem, just like scientific theories. You don't get patent for those. And also literary, dramatic, literature, you don't get patents because those are covered by copyright. Mere presentation of information, you don't get patent because this must be innovative thing, invention. And certain mental act, playing games, doing business, program for computer, usually you don't get a patent. That is why I told you usually programs are not given patents unless it's a very, very special case, like special algorithms for compressions, image savings, and so audio, videos, files, and so for formats. And sometimes you get patent for those. Right? How do you get patents? If it is not in these areas and there's innovative step, innovative possible commercial applications. So this is how you get the patents. It's a formal process. So every country has a national patent office. So if you feel like you have come up with a new innovative thing, materials, drug, design, you need to apply for patents. There's a very formal procedure, fill forms. You need to disclose, provide details about your innovative idea, concept, design, some documentation. So then it is reviewed by experts in that relevant area, like university professors and so on. So then only they, if they decide that okay, it's innovative thing, it has some applications, possible applications, they provide you the patent or they register it as a patent and give you the patent certificate. Again, there are two type of patents: the local patents and international patents. So usually, if you can go for international patents, it's uh, even better because it's covered international. So then you get that temporary monopoly to use your idea, design for a specific period of time exclusively by you. Okay? Right. So then how do you enforce patent? If you find that someone else or some other organization, some business, use your idea, steal your idea, innovation, design, material, so then you can go to courts and file a case because you have the patents. Then, of course, you need to prove it with the help of lawyers and so on. And then you will get the compensation, or you can get them stop using your idea and possible compensation. Okay, that is how you enforce patents. Right. So remember, getting a patent for software is little bit tough. Only very special cases you get patents. In general, software is only covered copyrighted. Okay, but there are special cases. Right? People get patent for some software libraries, interfaces, algorithms as well. Right. So when it comes to software patents, there's another concept called defensive software patents. So now remember, when you have innovative idea, concept, design, you need to go and get the patents. If you delay it, if someone else apply for patents before you, they get the patents. So then it is your idea, you never get the patents, but other guys copy your idea and they get the patent. Now you can't use your idea. So therefore, getting a patent is not just you get the monopoly. Otherwise, sometimes you will also can't use your own innovation because someone else get the patent. Whoever filed the patents first get the patents because they can't right evaluate who got that idea first. Whoever gave the applications and process it first get the patents. So therefore, there's a risk because you don't care about getting patents, but someone else get the patent for your idea. So in order to prevent that, some companies take software patenting not because they are really serious about that patent, but because they are worried that someone else will get the patent and you can't use it. So that kind of behaviors are called defensive software patenting. So a company take patents because they fear of others get your patent for your idea and prevent you using it. You are not very serious about others copying your idea. You don't care. But you really care whether you lose the rights to use it. So therefore you go and get the patents. So that is called defensive software patenting. And again, it's very difficult to draw a line and explain what is meant by innovative new invention. So therefore, from countries to countries, region to regions, this definition is vague, though there are some common aspects. Okay. And some countries, especially like USA, so they very rarely use patent to software because they consider software as a very abstract concept. But European Union, they are somewhat relaxed on that and they tend to provide more patents to software as well. So it is how they look at software, how they look at what is innovation and so on. And there's a debate for a very long time whether we patents are good or bad. Because patents have both good and bad. So there are arguments for patenting and there are arguments against patenting. So the main arguments for patenting is it encourages inventions because when someone put up a lot of effort and come up with the invention, they get the monopoly to use that. So that is a good motivation for inventions. So that is the main argument for patenting. It encourages inventions and disclose the inventions. But some people argue against patenting also saying that so this restrict others using it. Sometimes people get heavy profit out of these patents because they have the monopoly for very long period, about I think 20 years. So there's a debate between whether patenting is good or bad. Okay. But remember, compared to other intellectual properties, patenting is very formal, explicit intellectual property because you need to go and get the patent certificate, which is not the case when it comes to copyrights, okay, trade secrets. Right, now we move on to trademarks. So trademarks include trade names and trademarks. For example, Microsoft is a trade name. Windows is a trade name. That Windows mark is a trademark. Right? So Android has a trademark, the name itself, and there's a special symbol, right? That is called trademark. So trademark represent a business or product. Say Microsoft is a trademark, Windows is a trademark. Both are trademarks. So when someone build a business, you put up a lot of effort, money to build that image. So that is why business organizations' names are considered as trademarks. You can't register a company saying Google, Microsoft. And products are also can be trademark. Individual products. For example, if you take Unilever, so sunlight. So you can manufacture your own soap, but you can't name it sunlight because sunlight is a trademark, trade name of Unilever. You can start a new business, but you can't call it Unilever. You can't call it Maharaja. So those are trademarks. Trademarks, trade names you need to register, just like patents. But registering a trademark or trade name is not very complicated. So they just check whether the same trade name or trademark is already registered. If not, you get it. It's a simple process. At the same time, they will check whether your trade name or trademark is very close to someone else's trademark or trade name. Because that can lead to a lot of disputes, unfair things. Right. So the purpose of trademark is defend your hard-earned reputation, okay, brand awareness. Again, trademarks are covered by intellectual property laws of respective countries. At the same time, there are common agreements about trademarks because trademarks issues can go across countries. Maybe someone in Sri Lanka start a company called Microsoft. So then it's cross-country issue. So that is why we have General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, GATT. So the member countries have signed certain agreements on trademarks or in general intellectual property rights. Right. So remember, it's always good idea to register your trademark because then you have more legal binding, official binding. But at the same time, it is not a must. It is not a must, but it's really encouraged, but not a must. As long as you can prove that it is you or your organization that use it first. But again, it's always better to register it so that you have the exclusive evidences. Okay. Right. How to protect software using trademarks. So remember, software is usually what you get is copyrights. Occasionally, patents for some very special, specific for modules and so on. So then, can you protect your software using trademarks? Possibly, yes. So remember, for example, Microsoft Office, it's a trademark. Firefox, it's a trademark. So likewise, if you also build a brand, product, and you properly register it under trademarks, trade names, so that is good for you. Otherwise, others will try to use your systems and so on for their usages, their businesses. Right. So now we are into the sort of a final subtopic. Now we are done with the major intellectual property rights, copyrights, trade secrets, patents, trademarks, and trade names. Right. Now we'll look at very briefly the Creative Commons licenses. Remember, this is now we are going back to the copyrights. So how do you copyright your material or software? Don't sell it. Just give the license to use it. So then the question is, what is your license? What should be included in your license? What type of license you give? So we have already discussed about the different levels of control of software, right? Public domain, you have no owners have no right interest about the rights, copyrights, and so on of a particular product. So then LGPL, lesser GPL, or the red license, green GPL. So the difference is all about when someone do the changes, can they release it on the same? Must they release it on the same copyright license agreement, or can they change it? And now we look at another important way of type of licenses, Creative Commons licenses. Creative Commons licenses were first introduced not for software but for online content creators like bloggers, social media personals. So when you write something, right? When you say article or something, even something like a poem, so you want to share it with others. You don't want to keep it secret, but at the same time, you want to preserve your rights that you are the original author, your copyrights. So it was very complicated at that time, right? Because software, we have different licenses. But when you share your contents, how do you specifically say what are the rights of the consumer or the reader? What they can do, what they can't do? Because this is not like running a software, right? People don't read your license agreements. So we need something very simple and at the same time very descriptive way of communicating what you can do, what you can't do with my contents. That is where they came up with Creative Commons licenses. Creative Commons licenses. We can't take the same domain name for two businesses. Is there a connection with trademarks and domain names? There's a connection, but anyway, just because you have the trade name or trademark registered, it doesn't guarantee that you are getting the domain name because it is all about first come, first serve basis, right? First come, first serve basis. But sometimes they introduce new domains, right? Top level domains. In that kind of a situation, right? People can or organizations can reserve domains in advance. Okay. So then if there's a dispute, say two parties requesting the same domain name, maybe the new release. So then when they decide who should get the rights, so usually they consider whether you have the trade name, registered trade name, trademarks related to that domain name. But other than that, there's no legal binding. Okay. with your trademark, trade name, and domain names. But at the same time, some, especially these country-specific domain names, they ask what is the reason for getting that domain. And sometimes if it is very obvious, they will block it. Say if that domain name has nothing to do with you, because there's something called selling domains. You get the domain which you don't need it, but you know that someone else, some other business organization may need it. It's a high value for them. Okay. So that you can demand high prices from them because now the domain is with you. Anyway, we will look at it later. Right. So regarding the Creative Commons licenses, the idea is let the content providers share their contents while preserving their rights. At the same time, communicate what the recipients can do, can't do in a very simple and straightforward manner. That is the idea behind Creative Commons licenses. Most of the time, not most of the time, Creative Commons licenses use symbols so that anyone can easily understand. Not one symbol, set of symbols showing under which type of a license you share this. So what you can do, what you can't do. Okay. So major goal behind Creative Commons is to make sure that creators get the proper credit for their work. Of course, creators want to share their contents. That is the whole purpose of publishing in blogging platforms, social media. But at the same time, you don't want someone else claim your content as their content, which is unethical, right? It's your effort, your innovation, your right creativity. And they wanted to make it very straightforward and simple, easy to understand by anyone. So then someone can't say, I never thought of violating copyrights. That is why Creative Commons licenses are very self-descriptive. Mostly we use symbols, pictures. And Creative Commons licenses are based on existing copyright laws. So therefore it's not violating the existing laws. Okay. And the creators have very tight control and very fine-tuned control, uh, giving giving the rights and keeping the rights. Specifically, they can mention what you can do, what you can't do with my content. Right. What are the different aspects related to Creative Commons licenses? Okay. So which includes whether someone can use it commercially or not. So that means I can say, yes, you can use my content, but not commercial. Or I can say, yes, you can use it. You can use it even commercial purposes. So second aspect is, can you modify my content? Or you must use it as it is. Okay. So derivative works. And when you change it, whether you share it with the same license as my license, or you share it with a different license. That is called share alike. So how are you going to share your derivative work? Are you going to use this for personal use or commercial use? Right. Those are the four aspects. Right. These are the four aspects. What are those aspects? Number one, so these symbols are also there so that anyone can easily understand. Attribution. Attribution means if you use my content, right? You must give me the respect attribution. You must mention that it is taken from my content, from this website, this book. So that is called attribution. Attribute the original author of the work. You can use it, but you need to mention, attribute that this is taken from this particular author's content. From Creative Commons License 2.0, this is a mandatory, right? So that means this is not optional. Other things are optional, but this is mandatory. Okay. If it is a valid Creative Commons license, that means everyone must attribute the original author. Right? If you use Creative Commons, you can't say that no, you don't need to attribute, because this is uh, it's a required right, because it's a very basic right. Other rights you can say no, I don't need those, but you can't say I don't need attribution. Okay. So second aspect is share alike. So that means if you modify my contents, should you use my same as my license to share it, or you can use different. If it is share alike, you can't restrict the license. Say you take my code, my software and modify it. So now you can't restrict. If I have release it under a particular Creative Commons license, if it says share alike, or if it has this symbol, now you can't restrict it. You must share your component because you use my component or modified component. You must also release it under my license because you took my code. That is called share alike. But if share alike is not there, of course, other party can increase the restrictiveness, decrease it, even though you adapt it from my work. So non-commercial is very straightforward, whether you can use it for commercial purposes or not. Can you use my content for commercial purpose or not? And non-derivative means can you modify it or not? Okay. You are because sometimes I can say yes, you can use it, but you're not supposed to modify it. Just use it. That is called no derivative, ND. Right. We all discuss about the GNU LGPL, GNU GPL, and other BSD licenses, right? From semester one, we have discussed that. And these Creative Commons licenses are designed so that they are pretty much compatible with these licenses. Because these licenses are the more popular type of licenses in software industry. Right now, when you get it back to uh, Creative Commons licenses, so there are 5 invalid combinations. Why? Because you can't say ND. Sorry, you can't say that attribution is not required. Okay. And you can't have both ND and SA. Right? You can't have both ND and SA. What is mean by ND? No derivative. That means other parties can't change the content. Then SA means share alike. Of course, if no derivatives are not allowed, there's nothing called share alike, right? There's no question of that. So therefore, you can't have both ND and SA together because uh, ND says you are not supposed to modify it. right? SA says you are not supposed to restrict the license when you change it. Of course, if you can't change it, there's no question of this. So that is why NDSA both can't be there. So these are possible questions, right? So you can't have both ND and SA together. Right? So then why do we have four? Remember NDSA and other combinations, NDSA and NC, NDSA and BY and so on, right? So therefore, you can't have NDSA combination. Okay. So that NDSA combination is found in five invalid combinations. For example, NDSA and BY and NC. So that is invalid because ND and SA both are there. So likewise, you can identify this NDSA combination is there in uh, five combinations. Okay. Sorry, four combinations, and one includes none of the clauses. So another possibility is someone saying skipping all these, but that is not allowed, right? Then it is not a Creative Commons license. If someone says that means remember you need to add these pictures, selected pictures. Maybe you will say okay, so that means arbitration. Maybe you don't need this. Maybe non-commercial, right? So likewise, you can pick and choose whatever you want. But what happens if someone pick and choose to include none? So then there is no rights, right? So therefore, that is also considered invalid. So any combination where you have both ND and SA is invalid. So there are four such combinations. Okay. And there's a fifth combination that is you don't specify any of these. Nothing is there. No picture is there. So that is also invalid because then there's nothing to defend. So that is how there are five invalid combinations. Okay. But there are 11 valid combinations. Five invalid, 11 valid. Okay. And remember, you can't have any combination without BY. That is, attribution is a must. You can't have a Creative Commons license where this is ignored. This is missing. No, because this is a mandatory rights. This is now how many rules you learn? Having arbitration, actually attribution is a must. Other thing is you can't have both uh, ND and SA together. So if you have NDSA together, that is invalid Creative Commons license. There are some company theoretically you can build that kind of situations where you have both ND and NS. That is why we exclude four. Other one is if you have none of these symbols, that is also invalid. So that five invalid combinations. At the same time, there are 11 valid combinations without going to this. Okay. And out of those valid combinations, now with Creative Commons 2.0, they have included, they have made it must to have uh, attribution. Attribution. So therefore, finally, we have six regulatory use licenses. And of course, the public domain declaration. Public domain means you are no interested about licensing. Right. So these are the six regularly used licenses or widely used licenses. Remember always BY must be there. BY must be there. You can't have a license without BY from 2.0. So one combination is CC-BY. So that is Creative Commons attribution license. So that means you only need to attribute me. That's all, nothing else. Okay. So it has only this symbol, just the attribution. So this is another combination, CC-BY-SA. Now remember, earlier also we had BY. Now we have SA also. So that means creative, CC means Creative Commons, attribution and share alike. So that means you need to attribute me whenever you use my content. At the same time, you can't restrict the license if you derive it from my content. Same license must be used. Another one is BYND, that is attribution and no derivatives. This is share alike. Here you can't even modify. Here you can modify, but you need to give it under the same license. You can't restrict. But here you are not supposed to modify my content. BYND. Another one is BYNC. That is attribution and no commercial. You can use it for non-commercial things, but not for commercial things. So this is another combination, BYNCSA. So BY means attribution. Okay. So then NC means non-commercial. You can't use it for commercial purposes, and you need to share in the same level. You can't restrict it. If you use my content, it's another one, BYNCND. They have asked about these combinations. Okay, so they will ask you to explain what is mean by these Creative Commons license, or they will give you clarifications and ask you write down the Creative Commons uh, license structure. Right. So remember, CC0 means no right reserved. It's like general public. Okay. It's in the public domain. So these are some possible combinations of Creative Commons licenses. Right. Finally, domain names. So remember, domain name is also intellectual property because your domain name is heavily bound to your trade names. Okay. Product names. And also these domain names are unique. There is no two unique domain names. So if someone has taken that domain name, unless that guy release it, you can't get it. So therefore, domain name is sort of a restrictive thing, right? It's limited thing. Limited thing. So therefore, you need solid policies, procedures when it comes to domain names. So in general, domain names are allocated on first come, first serve basis. Whoever asks that first will get it. Okay. Right. Who control domain names? I can. International, sorry, Internet Corporation for assign names and numbers. So they manage or monitor both IP addresses and domain names. Right. Assign names and numbers. But the thing is, they have devolved their power to various governments, and also non-government or private institutes, private businesses. Especially selling domain names is mostly done by private businesses. Right. What is mean by cyber squatting? So, as I told you, cyber squatting means someone register a domain not because he or she want it, but thinking that when someone or the genuine user want it, you can sell it at a very high price. So that tactic is called cyber squatting. Squatting. It's commercial activity, but there are limitations as well because it's sometimes it is really unfair thing to do. So okay, right. Fair use policy because we discussed about Creative Commons. Remember, Creative Commons is more for content sharing, not for software. Right. So those who get the access to the contents, so they have limited uh, rights. What are those? You can take that kind of contents published under Creative Commons licenses. You can use content or part of the content for criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, research, and so on. So you can use it. Okay. Right. So what are some fair uses for contents like this, or even include ebooks and so on? So, four factors of fair use. Number one, purpose and character of use, including whether the use is of commercial nature or it is non-profit educational purpose. So that is one thing. So there are a lot of places you can use it for non-profitable things, especially for education purposes. Okay. Second one is nature of copyrighted work. What type of thing is covered here? Is it online contents or source code, something like that? Okay, nature of the copyright work. First one is purpose and character of use. Okay, what is the purpose of use? Nature of the copyrighted work. Next one is amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. So when you write something, what amount of the content are copied from someone else's content? Is it too much or is it okay? Okay. Fourth one is effect of the use upon the potential market for a value of the copyrighted work. So that is all about your commercial value. Okay. Right. So what is the time now? Okay. So we'll stop at this point. So in the next class, that is Friday class, uh, I will do the past paper questions. Okay. Because you have the time to go through the past papers now. These are the past paper questions, right? Make sure you go through the past paper questions first by you, right? So then we will discuss this in the next class. Best thing is you go through the past papers today itself because now it's everything is fresh. But if I go through the past papers, you don't get a opportunity to attempt that, right? So therefore, I will go through the past paper, these questions as the first thing in the Friday class, but make sure today itself, first you go through or else tomorrow morning, again you go through the note and then immediately do the past papers. Okay. Right. And also possibly Friday class, I want to start maths. Right. So you can attend the sessions and see how it goes. But if there's at least one student, I will do the maths subject. Okay. But if there are no students, I will skip it. Right. As long as students are there, I will be doing it. Okay. I highly recommend you to attend the math sessions. Okay. Uh, Even I don't mind whether you apply for the exams or not, but it's always good to uh, do that subject. Okay, do that subject, but it's up to you because semester 6 you have the other optional subject e-business. So you just need to pass one of those. Okay, and if you attempt both subjects, whatever the marks you get, the higher results will be considered. Say you get maths B, uh, e-business A, then for GPA calculation they take A. Okay, right. We stop at this point. Right. Thank you.